A research institute in France said it has lost thousands of tubes of samples of deadly SARS coronavirus. So there you go, right? We're just covering recently, or most of you guys know about the Ebola virus going around. Someone sent me a link about Ebola detection kits being given out to the government, or they're acquiring them. I've actually covered an article from Cryptagon that said that this would be a self-fulfilling prophecy, where these things would being made in a lab in order to prevent something would actually cause it. So yeah, SARS research lab loses 2,000 tubes of killer virus fragments. This article is kind of interesting because I'm going to get to the mother who advocates vaccines after her daughter or kid is killed from chickenpox. It's as if I had just been reborn. A woman struck down by Ebola virus, which has killed more than 100 people this year in Guinea, tells of miracle recovery. She was battling the virus for weeks. Says a 90% fatality rate, and she's only a handful of people that actually recovered. She spoke of her joy of being reborn after pulling through against the odds. And it says here that that there wasn't much of a treatment, and that to hear that I had a disease that could not be cured, I was so afraid, as if I had just been reborn, she told reporters. Lastly, she says, the way people were looking at me, I knew I had this really dangerous illness, but I'm fine now. Thank God I'm cured. Okay, mom whose child died after catching chickenpox advocates for vaccines. Of course, this is being carried by Yahoo's on the front. That's how I found it when I was looking for articles. Good Morning America, ABC. So this is what the average mom is going to read, and it's going to scare the living crap out of her, and it's going to make her doubt what she's going to do. I think most of you have had chickenpox. I did too. It got a couple days off, 2-3 days of school off. You put some, not calamine lotion, but the brown stuff. You put it on your there, and you get some rest, and you'll be fine. But God, if something happens, God forbid, you have to be an advocate for vaccines for every other child. So here we go. She will be exploited, and she says here that her little body couldn't fight against the 2 infections. After 10 agonizing hours in the hospital, she died in her mother's arms. She came down with pneumonia. And of course, it goes on and says that pneumonia and chickenpox are preventable with vaccines. It says her pediatrician steered her away from vaccinating her daughter, who lived in a rural area. I asked for them, and my doctor talked me out of it. He said vaccines were too new and recommended I expose my children to diseases instead because he felt they could build up their immunity naturally. So, God bless that doctor pediatrician for saying that. But, legally, she's going to probably never practice again after that. I mean, how do people actually do that? Because they have so much to lose, right? Duffy Peterson said she wishes she had questioned the doctor's recommendations more forcefully. So, imagine if more moms question doctors' orders and putting their kids on Ritalin or many other things, getting them on Gardasil, take the Gardasil vaccine, and actually question that. No, they want you to question you being skeptical and questioning them. So, the mind control continues, right? The disinformation. I talked about engineering people's brains and our food and our air and that weather modification video. You have this infants unable to use toy building blocks due to iPad addiction, and they warn that the rising numbers of children are unable to perform simple tasks such as using building blocks because of overexposure to iPads. They're lacking motor skills needed to play with building blocks because of addiction to tablet computers and smartphones, according to teachers. Many that are 3 or 4 can swipe a screen but have little or no dexterity in their fingers after spending hours glued to iPads. They say that the children were unable to complete traditional pen and paper exams because their memory had been eroded by overexposure to screen-based technology. They call on parents to crack down on it, on their computer use, and even turn off Wi-Fi at night. How about turn it off for good? Americans' brains being fried by cell towers New scientific evidence reveals shocking extent of electro-pollution damage. This is from March 26th. That's when I was originally going to cover it, from naturalnews.com. So if you want to watch or read the whole article, you can. Just go check that out. The conclusion of a new study published by the British Medical Journal says exposure to cell phone towers alters brain function in alarming ways, causing a lack of concentration, irritability, difficulty sleeping, and a lack of appetite. That these symptoms are directly correlated to cell tower exposure levels. It says that this electromagnetic hypersensitivity has long been dismissed as non-existent by some doctors and industry-funded scientists. And it says that, but this hypersensitivity is a genuine phenomenon. People are not inventing side effects or symptoms. Many studies reported, 8 out of 10, that increased prevalence of adverse neurobehavioral symptoms of or cancer in populations living at basically close to cell towers. So yeah, all these people were living near them. They meet current safety regulations or guidelines, which aren't very stringent, much like your food. I have to add, there's actually a house, a little farmhouse where I live, and they actually have a big honkin', and I think it's a cell tower, but maybe it's a Wi-Fi tower. The big ones too, right in their backyard. Literally, like you could probably reach out and touch it from their backyard, right? Scientists unveil most detailed wiring map of the mammal brain. So yeah, they want to figure out the human brain and what they're doing with the children and stuff like that. We were talking about the technology and that. That's, to them, that's progress. For us, we're like, oh man, that's bad. We need to do something. We need to limit the use. It's like, well, it's what they're doing that's causing it. It's I don't know if it's so much the exposure. It's like they say, like you'll have the same regulatory body saying that low doses of radiation, are good for you. They're not bad over a long period of time. Scientists unveiled a three-dimensional map of 75 million neurons of the mouse brain, the most complex diagram of a mammal's brain ever created. Researchers say it's an important step towards understanding the way the human brain works. The so-called connectome shows the circuits formed by connections between individual brain cells, neurons, which work together to process and code information that ultimately produces emotions and bodily functions. That's what they want to do. They want to mimic the human brain. They also want to understand the human brain, understand how the human brain is wired, so they can control us more. It's pretty simple. It's just the best way to put it. It's one of the most crucial steps to understanding how the brain encodes information so they can replicate it for things like this, right? Do they have microchips that can process faster than human brains? Who knows? Some say yes, some say no, that the technology is there or not. Supercomputers and stuff. This whole Malaysia plane crash was, some people think, that was actually Rothschild wanting to get this patent for this microchip processor. And, that would make sense, right? It's called Freescale Semiconductor. Most of these people that were killed on this flight were actually Asian. I covered that article. They said that these people aboard were very important. So there's this company, Freescale Semiconductor. They launched what could be the world's smallest microcontroller in February 2013 called the Kinesis KLO2. Even the small size, it could be the most potent next-generation war weaponry when remotely controlled or automatically programmed. The KLO2 can be utilized to employ drones smaller than flies, and we've seen a lot about that. They have that technology. They can make them operate in like hives and go through windows and stuff. Such small-sized drones were allegedly being used to deliver lab-cloned viruses or toxic drugs instrumental for spreading plague viruses and diseases, which we're seeing whether it's SARS or Ebola, track spy satellites or large-scale and hidden weaponries. That could also be injected to devices like Google Glass to render the device obsolete or have the device controlled from someone aside from its owner. Oh yeah, it's also significant in making plausible the Pentagon's ultimate dream of human-controlled robotic warriors, injected to bionic prosthetics to control robot or robotic nerves and limbs. Killing the creators of this chip will prevent any leakage or selling of the technology to the Chinese and outside the Malaysian government. Inside the military's new office for cyborgs from April 1st, called the Biological Technology Office, BTO. Basically have the ability to link human brains to machines. Moving down here, of course, they have all the usual suspects, including DARPA, getting into programs for brain research, synthetic biology. Oh, so they actually go into the human brain, saying that it's able to perform, right? 10,000 trillion operations per second. It's 1/3 as fast as this Chinese supercomputer. The only difference is the human brain does it calculating with just 20 watts of power, where this supercomputer needs 24 million watts. This kind of verifies what we were saying the last couple of years, which is, these wars with these poor guys are getting blown up, coming back, and though the government loves them and they give them a prosthetic limb, robotically controlled, they're being experimented on, for cyborgs and this new generation here, this new era. The prosthetics that are wirelessly neurally controlled are just the research stage, so you're an experiment. Experts warn U.S. soldiers may be replaced with robot warriors. This is from April 2nd. With advancements in robotics, it's assured that in a short amount of time, the U.S. military may turn to a synthetic army to replace human soldiers. A roboticist envisions if researchers set out to build a robot that can drive a regular car, climb a ladder, operate a jackhammer. That means that the robot can manipulate an AK-47 and it can manipulate the controls of all conventional military machines as well. Not just that, just regular things. Such as, a nurse, a prison guard like we talked about before, teachers. You have actually newspapers now. The Guardian's bringing automated content curation to the U.S. newsstands using some tried and true technology. The print newspaper, so they're launching small run newspaper in the U.S. Stories picked by a machine using algorithms. It says it uses algorithms to cherry pick long reads from the Guardian's online content based on how well they did on social networks, Facebooks, and tweets. So you're part of the algorithm if you participate in that fully, right? You just post stuff that's cool and stuff, but it's definitely, it's not just about being tracked. It's about feeding into this artificial intelligence. Might as well throw this in there with that. From the 14th, FBI plans to have 52 million photos in its NGI facial recognition database by next year. This is what they're actually saying, the FBI. So, they say the database may hold records on as much as 1/3 of the U.S. population. I'm sure it's going to be everybody, but it's just funny when people say it poses real threats to privacy for all Americans. Well, in this new age of technology, you're not going to have privacy. Could we in a truly voluntarily, free society? Probably. But, if we're getting fed all this stuff from a few people that want to control the entire planet, let alone the human species, I think it's going to come with some kind of drawback, which is why you see on Facebook, what is it, their big thing is that, we're still running free, free. I covered this very briefly about a month ago, but Bionic Olympics to be hosted in 2016. The first Cybathon, I guess you pronounce it, is an Olympics for bionic athletes. Take place in Switzerland in October 2016, including a race where competitors control an avatar via a brain interface. There'll be races for competitors wearing prosthetic limbs and exoskeletons. They hope the competition will spur interest in human performance-enhancing technology. The brain-computer interface race is designed for competitors who are paralyzed from the neck down. They will control an avatar in a computer racing game via a headset that connects the brain to a computer. So, they say there will also be a wheelchair race. Bionic limbs and exoskeletons are becoming much more technically advanced, offering those wearing them much more realistic movements. The people hosting this are trying to get bionic limbs more widely available to those who need them. 50% human, 30% human, till no human.